Everybody, welcome to the Agoura Hills City Council meeting. Please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices. Excuse me. If you wish to speak or submit a written comment, please complete a comment card for each item and submit to the city clerk prior to the public comment portion of the item. I'm now going to call this meeting to order. It's the City Council meeting of Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. The City of Agoura Hills acknowledges that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Chumash Nation. Descendants of Chumash still remain, and we honor and pay our respects to their elders and various groups that make up the past, present, and emerging as they continue their stewardship of our land and waters. We have a responsibility and commitment to elevate the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of the City of Agoura Hills, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. I'm now going to defer to Girl Scout Troop 3616 for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will the audience please rise? Color Guard attention. Color Guard advance. Color Guard, post the colors. Please place your right hand over your heart and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard dismissed.
Thank you so much, Girl Scout Troop 3616. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you being here and helping us with the flag salute tonight. So thank you. Take care. We will next take a roll call. Madam Clerk?
Good evening. Councilmember Anstead?
Here.
Councilmember Klein-Lopez?
Here.
Councilmember Wolf?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Here.
Mayor Buckley-Weber?
Here.
Mayor Buckley-Weber, you have a quorum.
Thank you. No closed session was held, so there's no report. We're now looking for approval of agenda. Will the maker of the motion and the second to approve the agenda state your names?
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester moves to approve the agenda.
City Councilmember Chris Anstead seconds.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Anstead?
Aye.
Councilmember Klein-Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley-Weber? Mayor Buckley-Weber, you have approval, 5-0.
Thank you very much. We're now going to do presentations, so I'm going to head over to the testing. I think sounds good. Would you like to come up and join me from Sirius Cycle? I'm very honored to be giving the May Business of the Month Award to Sirius Cycling. National Bicycle Safety Month is celebrated every year in May. During National Bicycle Safety Month, the U.S. Department of Transportation urges bicyclists and motorists to share the roadways by obeying the traffic laws and respecting each other's rights. National Bicycle Safety Month was created to remind the public to put safety first. National Bicycle Awareness Month was first celebrated in 1956. The League of American Bicyclists proposed healthy exercise by riding bikes. The first bicycle was built in 1839 by a Scottish blacksmith, Kirkpatrick Macmillan. After his invention, various European inventors added elements familiar to today's bike, such as the rear-wheel drive and hand-operated brakes. Agoura Hills has taken up the initiative to encourage cycling, and our local business, Serious Cycling, continues to partner with us. Serious Cycling was founded in 2009 with the mission to grow the love of cycling. Their work in the community has safely put thousands of riders on bikes and produced a race club competing at every level of the sport on the road, mountain, gravel, and velodrome, an arena for track cycling. Serious Cycling is a strong supporter of the Agoura Hills Bikeway Master Plan to provide safe streets and enhanced recreation to the region. They have also partnered with the Lost Hills Sheriff Station and the City of Agoura Hills for a community bike ride to celebrate Roadway Safety Day. Serious Cycling organized a 4-mile, 40-kilometer, and a 40-mile bike ride for our Reyes Adobe Days Rad Rides. It is an honor to present you with the Certificate for Business of the Month for May 2024. Thank you for your service to our community. And would you like to say a few words, Jennifer? And this is Jennifer. I don't know if I said that. And Jennifer and Brian. So, Brian, I recognize you, but I don't think I've met you. Jennifer, I've seen in bike clothes, and we've done the races together. So, Jennifer?
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is quite an honor for Brian, myself, and my husband, Scott. This is great for our community. It shows that cycling is important for the city of Agoura Hills, just as important to you guys as it is to us. So we've been here over 15 years, and we love it. We hope to continue in this area, and we hope to see everyone out for a ride.
Thank you. Brian, would you like to say a few words?
Pretty good. I was just going to say that I remember seeing Chris out there, and no, it's awesome. I'm honored, and I will continue doing what I'm doing at the shop and riding and leading rides and just spreading love of cycling just like we do. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And personally, I've been to your shop a few times for repairs, and I want to tell you that your staff has always been super generous and kind and helpful, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. Oh, well, let's get a picture. Let me come down here. Okay. I'd like to be on a bicycle right now. Let's move on to Intergovernmental Special Purpose Committee and Departmental Reports. Let's start with our Pure Water Project update from Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. We have Oliver Slosser, LVMWD Engineering Program Manager. Hello there.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. Really excited to share a project update of our Pure Water Project, a joint venture from Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and Tramfo Water and Sanitation District. So tonight, I'm going to update you on where we're at with the project, go over some project background, our current status and schedule. I wanted to share some more details about the delivery method we're using to deliver the main portions of this project, progressive design build, and how that's going to work. We'll talk a little bit about the advanced water purification facility, which is slated to be built in the city of Agoura Hills. Talk a little bit about the pipeline and conveyance associated with the new infrastructure, and then talk a little bit about funding and financing, the project benefits for the city, and our public outreach and collaboration with the city of Agoura Hills. So starting with the project background, I know I've been here previously, but it's been a while, so just wanted to make sure everybody was up to date with what this project is. But essentially, this project addresses three main project drivers, the first of which is protection of the Malibu Creek watershed. New regulations that are upcoming in 2030 require a much lower level of nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, being discharged to Malibu Creek, which would have meant a pretty expensive upgrade to our Tapia Water Reclamation Facility, which discharges to Malibu Creek. And so faced with that necessity, our JPA looked at options to not only meet that regulatory requirement, but address other challenges that we were facing at the district. One is creating a local drinking water source. At the moment, all of our water is imported from Northern California through the State Water Project. So it's always been a goal of the JPA to develop new local water sources and also to balance variation in our recycled water system. We've been doing non-potable reuse, purple pipe, for decades, and because of the difference between how much recycled water we produce versus when it's demanded and the seasonality of that, we have an excess of this recycled water resource in the winter, and actually don't have enough for our demand during the summer. And so during winter, we discharge to Malibu Creek. During summer, we have to supplement the potable system, or the recycled system, with potable water. So this project really addresses all three of these challenges for us. We can go to the next slide. So the unique features of this project is going to utilize California's reservoir water augmentation, so surface water source augmentation project, creating a new potable supply that is used to augment our Las Virgenes Reservoir in Westlake Village. The location of our facilities, we have Tapia in Malibu Canyon, Westlake Filtration Plant, and the reservoir in Westlake Village. So due to their geographic, where they're located geographically, it requires a lot of conveyance in order to connect these systems up. So we do want to utilize as much existing infrastructure as possible, and we'll be building a new advanced water purification facility, an AWPF, which will serve as a discharge mechanism for Tapia Water Reclamation Facility. It'll take all the excess water that we're not able to serve through the purple pipe system and turn it into potable water. And that plant will receive variable flow rates throughout the year. So we'll have a lot of water to process during the winter, not as much during the summer. So this kind of shows how all these facilities work with each other. So our Tapia Water Reclamation Facility treats reclaimed water. Any excess water that is not being used in the purple pipe system would go to this new advanced water purification facility. That purified water is then sent to Las Virgenes Reservoir, where it's detained for a set amount of time as an environmental buffer. And then it is blended with our imported water supply from Metropolitan, and then pulled back out through Westlake Filtration Plant when it's ready to be served to the potable system and treated again through that filtration plant. The new AWPF utilizes three treatment processes: membrane filtration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet advanced oxidation processes. So this treats the water to a much higher level than it already is, which is already pretty clean water being used as non-potable. So currently where we're at with the project, we've been in pre-planning really since about 2016. In March of this year, we selected the Walsh team, made up primarily of Walsh, Brown and Caldwell, and Carollo, to be our progressive design builders for the advanced water purification facility and the reverse osmosis concentrate pipeline. It was a year-long procurement process where we went through a request for qualification, request for proposal, interview with over 7 teams, shortlisted them down to 3, and ended up selecting the Walsh team. We are also beginning reservoir testing and modeling beginning late this year, and that'll help verify the ability to use our reservoir as an environmental buffer. We're going to be starting geotechnical engineering investigation and site exploration later this year. We have major construction scheduled to start late next year in 2025, and project completion at the moment is estimated in 2028. We have some other projects that are supporting this overall program, upgrades to pump stations, additional storage, modeling of our recycled water system. So those will be happening in parallel as well. So that's where we're at with the project right now. This is kind of an overall schedule. As you see, we're not getting into major building construction or pipeline construction until later next year. So wanted to kind of start off with just kind of where we're at, how we've gotten here, and what the outlook is for the next few years. We can go to the next slide. So just quickly wanted to cover progressive design build. It's a somewhat newer delivery model, and it's completely new for us at LVMWD and the JPA. It's a collaborative delivery model where really we form a team with the engineers who designed the project and the constructors who build it. And we work with them to create a project that is constructed while it is still being designed. So we bring that team on when we're at about a 10% level of design, which is where we're at now. We have our owner's advisor, Jacobs Engineering, has been working with us for the last 3 years to get us to that 10%. And really it's pre-planning and kind of defining the project project goals and general outcomes that we work with Jacobs for 3 years. But we don't really get into design until we bring that progressive design builder on. So right now we're at about a 10% level of design. Over the next 14 to 18 months, we'll take that from a 10% to a 60% level of design. The Walsh team will develop a guaranteed maximum price during that time. And once we're at 60% and we are given that guaranteed maximum price, then we have the decision to extend their contract to finish the rest of the project, finish phase 2, and take the design from 60% to 100% while they start construction of the project. So when we hear progressive design build, sometimes it seems like it's going to be constructed right away. There's still a lot of work that we have in front of us before we get to the groundbreaking activities. So I want to talk a little bit about the advanced purification facility itself, which will be in City of Agoura Hills. It's at 30800 Agoura Road. It's about a quarter miles east of Westlake Village on Agoura Road by Lindero Canyon Road. This is a picture of the site. When the JPA, yeah, perfect, we can go to the next one, thank you. When the JPA purchased this site, the JPA board adopted certain policy principles on how, that helped direct us at a staff level on how to move forward with developing this project. And so these are the 10 principles here. I won't go through them all, but some of the, I think, more important ones probably to the city is, preserving the natural beauty of the site. We're very aware of, the location of the site relative to Lady Face Mountain, the Lady Face specific plan, and the importance of the architecture of the buildings along that corridor. So we want to be sure that we're in keeping with the buildings along that area. We want to design facilities that are architecturally compatible with the surrounding areas, minimize the overall footprint of the facility, and I'm losing which number it is, but I know we also are very cognizant of the oak trees in the city and the ones that are on that site and making sure that we're minimizing our impact to those oak trees. We can go to the next one. So this is the site itself. It's a little hard to see here, but the blue line is the full border of the site. On the right-hand side is a conceptual level site plan. This was done by Jacobs, not the progressive design builder that we have on board now. So this is a conceptual level really to make sure that the building that we need to build is able to be fit on this site. But as you can see from this, one of the things that were important to us was preserving the open space on the west side of the parcel next to the apartments, not just for noise mitigation, but also to retain as much open space as possible within the site. There's also a small creek that cuts the site in half, so keeping the development to the east side of that creek was beneficial to us as well. So again, this is going to be developed more as we get from 10% design to 60% design, but this really embodies a lot of the goals that we were trying to keep with the site, which is to keep a lot of it open space as possible. We can go to the next one. This is a conceptual rendering. We worked with the Jacobs Engineering and their architects. They were given the Lady Face specific plan, Agoura Hills planning documents, and came up with a conceptual design that was in keeping with a lot of those, as well as the wishes of our JPA board and district staff. I will say this is also very much under development. We're actually having our first architectural workshop with the Progressive Design Builder next week. So this is very subject to change, but I did want to show this to really illustrate that it's in our interest to build a visually pleasing building that is in keeping with the beauty of that corridor. We can go to the next one. So some of the key considerations when I came here last time, the comments that we got during the environmental review process and conversations that we've had with Agoura Hills staff, I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the, I think, key considerations when it comes to developing a new parcel within the city. Architectural being one of the main ones. As I said, first architectural workshop is going to be next week. We're going to be in close coordination with city staff throughout development of the architecture. The Lady Face Specific Plan is a guiding document that we've provided to the progressive design builder. Specifically that retaining wall in the back, based on the slope of the site itself, we're looking at options to minimize the height of that wall and generally to mitigate any visual impacts associated with the building. Public benefit has also been something that has been important for us to pursue. We did research the trailhead that is on the AWPF site now. It does look like it's not an official or formal trail entrance, and so we have started looking at other possible public benefits that could come with the development of that site. One of the options that we've been kicking around internally is a road bike repair station, water refill station, with maybe some educational material, a dedication plaque, somewhere where people on that bike lane along Agoura Road could stop and, fix their bike, get some water, learn about the facility. So it is something that we're going to continue to look into, pursue. We think that it would be very much in keeping with the character of the city, as we just saw with the dedication before. We can go to the next slide. We do have a mitigation plan that was outlined in our environmental document, which we're going to execute along with the project. We do know the importance of the cultural resources along that corridor, and making sure that our mitigation plan is implemented properly with the contractor, that we're doing investigation of the site as we're developing it. Any cultural resources are protected and identified. We'll continue to closely coordinate with the city staff. And then lastly, the oak trees, and actually that last bullet should say oak trees and biological resources. We also want to be sure that we're not having any undue impacts on the oak trees and cultural resources. So when I last came here, we identified about 28 trees based on the conceptual layout that may be impacted. I don't remember offhand. I don't think any were heritage trees. If there were, it was one or two. But suffices to say, this is a big part of how we're re-looking at the site layout. If we can minimize the impact and save some of those trees and not have to replant them elsewhere, that's in our benefit, as well as I believe the city's. And we have made a commitment to do that oak tree replacement at the 4-to-1 ratio that the city usually asks for. So any trees that do need to be removed will be replaced at that ratio. Quickly wanted to talk about the pipelines. To be honest, this isn't as much of an impact to the city itself. There will be pipelines along Agoura Road, but the majority of the pipelines are actually going to be going towards Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks. The main pipeline with this project is conveying brine, reverse osmosis concentrate, to a salinity management pipeline that's in the Ventura County, Thousand Oaks area. So we do exit the building with pipeline along Agoura Road, but then it quickly goes into Westlake Village and then on into Thousand Oaks. So this is just a geographical representation of where a lot of these facilities are. Tapia at the lower right, the AWPF in blue in the center, the reservoir lower left, and then the concentrate pipeline at the top left. We can go to the next slide. And just a bit of a map. So the advanced water purification facility is shown there. There is a pipeline corridor. We are looking at, and I'll cover this in one of the next slides coming up, but there's actually multiple pipelines that will probably go along that alignment, but we're looking at ways to only have to dig once. So there'll be a purified line, a raw water line, and the concentrate pipeline would be going west from the facility. And then there would be a small residuals pipeline going east, probably not farther than Reyes Adobe. And that would be a smaller pipeline to convey any waste streams from the plant back to our sewer system. We go to the next slide. So this kind of shows all the pipelines. It's a little difficult to see, but the pipeline in green is that reverse osmosis concentrate pipeline. That's of the 20 miles of pipeline we're looking at, that's about 14 miles of it. And so that is the line that goes to Thousand Oaks and the salinity management pipeline owned by Callegas. And then down at the bottom right is kind of the confluence of those 4 other lines. The residuals line, the raw water line brings water from the Title 22 system to the plant. The purified line brings water from the plant over to the reservoir. But both of those lead back towards Lindero Canyon Road and the city of Westlake Village. We can go to the next one. So construction impacts. I know this is it's always better if we think of this up front instead of having to deal with it when we're actually in construction. But as I mentioned, for the city itself, it's going to be relatively minimal impacts as far as pipeline work. It'll really just be Agoura Road from Reyes Adobe to Lindero Canyon Road. We are looking at having the Progressive Design Build team also construct, right now they're contracted to construct the reverse osmosis concentrate pipeline. We're in talks with them to actually do all the pipelines. This will help them, help us coordinate construction impacts, traffic impacts, and hopefully have a common trench so that we're not doing multiple diggings within the street. So we are in the process of working that out with them. We're investigating staging options in Agoura Hills, which would limit construction traffic from the staging area to the building itself. We are developing right now a request for qualifications for public relations firms. So we want to get them on board well before we start construction so that we are informing the communities, letting them know when traffic impacts are going to come well ahead of time, that they can plan around it. But also working with the constructors to make sure that we're not blocking a road to a school during prime school hours, and all of the little details that go along with planning construction to mitigate those day-to-day impacts for people driving within the city. And we'll continue that close coordination with the Agoura Hills staff as well to make sure that we have a good understanding of what those impacts might be and how best to avoid them. Funding and financing, I always like to cover this in my presentations because when folks see what we're building, the first thought is always how is this going to impact rates. We've been working really hard to secure as much free money or low interest money as possible. We were actually successful getting $10.2 million in grant funding from the Bureau of Reclamation in 2022. We're currently applying for another $20 million through their WaterSmart Title 16 grant funding program. We are in the process of a WIFIA loan, a state revolving fund loan, and other very low interest loans for this type of infrastructure. And that WIFIA loan would actually constitute just below 50% of the total project cost. So we're doing everything that we can to find ways to finance this that will mitigate impacts to ratepayers and keep the impact low. And luckily we do have a lot of customers. This spread out over our customer base. We don't expect the rate impacts to be significant when looking at a month-to-month bill, but we continue to find as much financial support as we can for the project to continue to keep that low. We go to the next one. And I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the project benefits. It's a good thing we're talking about Bike Month. This project really has a ton of benefits. As I started with, this was to address a regulatory requirement, but the reason the JPA decided to invest this extra money to go with a pure water program was because of all the benefits it brings to the region. So this will be our first local supply of potable water for the city of Agoura Hills and for LVMWD customers. It could produce up to 30% of our water supply into the future. It's a drought-proof source of water. I mean, even during the worst of the drought, we were still creating reclaimed water, and so that will continue. And with future droughts, somewhat imminent, it's always good to have a source of water that will continue throughout the drought. Obviously, local construction, the public benefit that I mentioned, such as a bike repair station, water filling station, 4-to-1 oak tree mitigation, and then continued engagement with the community. We do tours, education, outreach to the local community. We do tours of our pure water facility for schools. We go to local schools. So, we want the public to be on board with this and to bring them into the process. We go to the next slide. Another key benefit of this is getting back to what I started with, where we really have a lot of water to process in the winter, not as much during the summer. It gives us an opportunity to work with local governments within our region to maximize use of this facility. So we're actually doing a pilot program with the city right now to uh, to divert stormwater to our Tapia facility. Diversion of dry weather flows to Tapia could allow us to treat water during the summer when we wouldn't otherwise have an excess of water. So this is it's an amazing pilot, and we're really excited about it, and it could be expanded to more locations and to other cities within our service area. But we really see stormwater as a great opportunity to fully utilize this facility that we'll be building and to create even more local water. Public outreach and collaboration has been a hallmark of this program from the beginning. I won't go through all these, but we have an incredible public outreach team at Las Virgenes who are always coming up with amazing ideas. We've done tasting events where we take the pure water, make gelato, coffee, beer. Those have been really popular events. The beer event was actually at Ladyface Brewery, was very well received. We're looking at future events such as a pure pizza event where we're using the water to make pizza, maybe another beer event based on the popularity of the first one, and just outreach at our local events, council meeting presentations such as this. So we just really want to stay connected to our local cities, to our community, and make sure that we are as transparent as possible as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. We go to the next slide. One of the other great public outreach initiatives that we've had last year was our Full Circle podcast on Apple iTunes and Spotify. We did 8 episodes last year where we do kind of more of a deep dive into this project and some of the other water issues facing the district. We'll be doing another season this year. It was very well received. I did an episode as well, so encourage you all to check those out. And yeah, we'll be having more information. So we try to try to get as much information out there as possible. We think it's a very important part of the program. And I think this may be my last slide, but staff collaboration with the Agoura Hills staff and the council is incredibly important to us. We do realize that we're building the main part of this project within the city of Agoura Hills, and we want to make sure that we're working together as good partners. So we're actually going to have a kickoff with the Progressive Design Builder Walsh team and city staff in June. So that's scheduled to kind of make those connections and make sure that the Walsh team has direct contacts with the city. We are available for future council updates such as this as the project progresses, and if there are any questions. We're going to work closely with staff to collect your feedback, their feedback, and make sure that that's incorporated into the design. As we do develop a final architectural rendering, we've been talking to city staff about perhaps submitting that to the architectural committee for the city for their comment, making sure we know that they're a very important part of buildings that are built within city limits, so we would love to get their feedback and incorporate that. And as I mentioned before, we'll have a third-party public outreach firm who will be tasked with engaging with city staff as well as the public. I know I've talked a lot tonight. I hope I haven't taken up too much of the agenda, but I thank you so much for your time and would love to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so let's start with questions or comments. Councilmember Klein-Lopez?
Thank you. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. So thank you for that update. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. So the questions are, you mentioned that you might be building extra storage. I don't know if that's because the reservoir is filled up, or what do you mean by extra storage, and where is that?
So these are, there'll be some on-site storage at the AWPF itself. These are tanks that would be built in the facility, either underground or in the back of the facility. We're also looking at additional tank storage at the Tapia Water Reclamation Facility. Okay. So these are like, 1 million to 3 million gallon tanks. Not really in the public view shed, and really the function there is to attenuate flows so that we can provide a constant flow of water to the facility. An advanced purification facility, reverse osmosis membranes, when you have a variable flow, it doesn't work quite as well. So they're really, it's not like a new reservoir or anything like that. It's more at the tank level.
Okay, but the tanks are above ground?
Right now, the concept we're moving forward with has one above ground tank that would be behind the building.
Okay.
But we are looking at, to the extent possible, putting as many of those tanks underneath the building.
Okay, thank you. And then another question I have, I was laughing a little bit at the progressive design build because there's a saying that you're flying the plane as you're building it, and that's kind of how it sounds. It's not usually a good thing. So, why did you choose to do the progressive design build instead of having all of your design up front?
Yeah, so there's a couple drivers for that. The traditional way to deliver an infrastructure project such as this would be that you bring on an engineer designer, you'd get that all the way to 100% design, then you take those plans and you go out and you do a bid for the contractor to build it. There's always a break, between the engineer and the contractor within that model, and so you can get conflict between what the engineer intended, what the contractor understood, and the district ends up being kind of the intermediary between that. Progressive design build is a collaborative method where the engineer is talking to the contractor from the beginning. So as the engineer has an idea, the contractor's right there to let them know, well, that's going to work, that's not going to work. So the 60% design level where they're starting construction, a lot of that early works construction is already taken care of at the 60% design. So site work, grading, road construction. So there's a lot that they can get started on as they're continuing to develop the design for this facility. So there's never really a point where they're building something from a blank sheet of paper. It's just that they're working in tandem along with the owner in a collaborative environment to find efficiencies in schedule and to build it as it's ready to be built.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. And then I have a few comments about your communication plan. I'm assuming that you've given this presentation fairly similarly to the city of Westlake Village. So even though the building is going to be in Agoura Hills, it's obviously going to affect a lot of Westlake Village traffic-wise and pipeline-wise and all of that. So I would just say for your communication plan, if there's a way also to, when you get our staff involved, to also have Westlake Village in the same room. I'm sure that's what you'll do, but I would like to have a consistent message with them, especially for the residents that are right there. If you can have some kind of special meeting for the, I believe they're apartments. There's an apartment complex on the Agoura Hills side, an apartment complex on the Westlake Village side, and maybe you can have a special meeting with them since they're going to be the most impacted, especially when I see a map that says chemicals in the back and things like that. You're going to want to address some of their specific needs. So that's a comment. And I also just want to say I really appreciate that you're digging into our specific plan and really trying to heed the goals of that specific plan, is particularly the oaks, the trails, and the cultural resources. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up because that's very important to us. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Yes, thank you very much. I have just a couple of questions. The reservoir in Westlake Village, are you going to have to enlarge that?
No, we won't be enlarging it. It'll change a little bit of the operations. There'll be a little more fill and draw than we've done typically, but there's no physical changes to it. We'll have a new outlet from the facility into the reservoir. The intakes to the Westlake filtration plant will stay the same. The work that we're doing right now is really to model it, to show the regulators and that it is fit for purpose and that it can be used as the environmental buffer and provide the proper mixing and detention time.
So the only thing they're going to see is more piping coming in?
There will be one new pipe that goes up to the reservoir to take the purified water and put it into the reservoir, and that, yeah.
And then, because I couldn't tell from the map, the piping that's going to dump into you, where does that cross the freeway?
It has a crossing just before the 23, so just east of the 23, and then it crosses under the 23 on, I want to say Hillcrest. So yeah, right by the 23-101 interchange.
So then it'll be all along the south side of the 101 until it gets there?
Until it gets there, yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I'll verify that as well just to make sure I didn't misstate it, but yeah.
To know which roads it'll be, because it'll be Agoura Road and then...
It'll be Agoura Road, and then we did try to find a crossing that was underneath the freeway as opposed to an overpass. Right. So I believe it's the undercrossing that's just before you get to the 23.
Okay, yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Anstead.
Sure. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was great. one of the questions or one of the subjects you did bring up was the cost to the residents. And I just want to understand, because you said kind of it was a little bit vague, and I just wanted to try to understand, do you have projections on like do you believe that there'll be like a 10% rate adjustment, or tell me what your projections are that you have for this?
So we had a figure, I believe it was like a $4 per customer per, like a $4 like that. To be honest, right now we've been covering a $364 million project cost overall. We are at a big transition for the project now that we've brought on the Progressive Design Build team. The $364 million was an estimate, and now that we have the builder and contractor on board, we're going to be getting into a much more detailed level of cost with them. So over the next 3 months, 4 months, we'll be not only developing that cost, but then also looking at different ways to maybe find cost efficiencies, different ideas that they come with to save cost. So the $364 million is our current estimate. It's as everything as we get into design, subject to change. But yeah, we're working hard to make sure that the individual customer impact is as minimal as possible. And that's another one I could follow up with as far as what we're projecting right now, but it would be a bit of a temporal number as we develop costs more over the next 3 months.
Okay. Yeah. And again, the geography of what this would, who would utilize this again, besides Agoura, who else is going to be utilizing it?
As far as the product water?
Clean water, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really all of our customers, as well as some water may go to a Triumpho. So this just will become part of this will blend in with our imported supply. So as we put it in the reservoir, it blends with the imported water we already have in there. And it could be, I believe starting it'll be 15 to 20%. As we add augmentation sources, it could be up to 30% of our supply. So eventually it'll just be, part of the overall supply that we have.
And so when you do that, when you are utilizing 30% of your water supply, instead of bringing the water down from Northern California, does that, obviously that 30%, is there a cost savings in there initially? And then there's the cost of the facility and the ramping it up, but is there a pretty good cost savings?
There's definitely a cost savings. Yeah, no, that's 30% less water that we have to buy. There's the environmental benefit of that's 30% less water that has to be pumped 400 miles down from Northern California. We've also, Metropolitan Water District, our wholesaler, we are in process of entering into an agreement for their local resources program. So they actually offer a rebate to retailers when they develop local supplies of water. So that will further give us a discount. And as imported water rates rise, the price of this water won't. So, we do foresee a time in the future where this water becomes cheaper than the water that we purchase from Metropolitan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilmember Wolf, do you have any questions?
I'm going to hold off on asking or asking any questions or providing any comments, but I do want to acknowledge that tonight we're joined by the Water District's principal engineer, who's also serving as the interim director of facilities and operation, Eric Schlagater, who came to join us tonight. So thank you for being here, Eric, and good job, Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and comments. First, like Councilmember Klein Lopez commented, I'm thrilled to see that you have agreed to our oak tree mitigation, and hopefully you won't have to remove as many oak trees as you think, but thank you for agreeing to the mitigation. And I believe what I'm hearing is that in terms of the view shed, these outdoor exterior tanks, you said they wouldn't block any of the view shed, and I hope that, that turns out to be the case, because I think it would be difficult for the residents driving on Agoura Road if they see the big tanks in the background. So thank you for that, and as well as the cultural resources. That's a very important part of being in Agoura Hills. So we appreciate all of that, and that you're even working with staff at all. I know you don't have to, but we do appreciate that, and it looks like you're really serious about that, and we like that. Now, you talked about having public outreach with staff. What about public outreach with our residents?
Yeah,
When
no,
will that happen?
Yeah, so the public outreach will be, I mean, the collaboration at the staff level will be more staff to staff. The public outreach firm that we're bringing on will be more focused on the community and residents of Agoura Hills and our customers. So we're going to develop a RFP or RFQ in the next coming months. I hope to have somebody on board, hopefully by the fall of this year, bring them up to speed. We put together a public outreach plan. They coordinate with the Progressive Design Builder. So I imagine a lot of the outreach will really begin next year.
Okay. And that outreach would be workshops and things like that, so residents could come in and talk to you, versus the beer party and the ice cream and the coffee and the tasting of the water, that you'd actually have a workshop where people could come tell you their ideas.
Yeah, it could be workshops, town halls, pamphlets that are sent out directly to residents, outreach to businesses. So, we're certainly going to lean on the expertise of this firm that we bring on, and we have a lot of really talented firms within the region who have worked on other pure water projects such as this. So certainly want to lean up on their expertise. But yeah, that's the sort of thing that we would be looking to do, is just strategically engaging the community and where it's going to be impacted the most.
Great, thank you for that. With regards to the communications, I just wanted to add that the Councilmember Klein Lopez brings up a really good point, because we just finished, we've had a communications group for probably 2 years or longer. We meet every other week to get through the girders. And we didn't have it just went so smoothly with our residents. So it's really beneficial to bring the group together and really work on having one unified message that goes out to everybody. We're all on social media, so you want to make sure that, if we're talking about Agoura Road or closures or this or that, it's always the same message. And along those lines, and it's probably premature, but do you have any idea whether there'll be a time period where there'll be a full closure of Agoura Road?
That I'm not sure of. I'm hopeful that's not necessary. The goal of having the one contractor do all 3 pipelines at once would be to focus on one side of the road and only impact that. I can't make any promises at this stage, but yeah, I think it would be my preference if that weren't needed.
Okay, great. And then let's see what my other notes say here. You talked about the retaining wall that we've all heard about for years, and I just want to make a comment that perhaps that can be a green wall, so it won't be as noticeable. Let's see. And then, okay, and then my last thing, it has to do with the public benefit. And obviously, we love the idea that you're going to put in, or considering putting in, a water refilling station as well as a bike repair station, and that's all wonderful. But just in my opinion, there needs to be something more significant than that, if possible, because that's pretty minor, and that only serves residents who cycle. So, because there won't be a hiking trail. And so one of the things I hope you will consider is maybe having an area on the east side of the building, if you can put in maybe a deck or an area where people can go bird watch or wildlife viewing. It doesn't have to be very large, but with all those oak trees back there, it's actually a really heavily birded area. And it would be nice if people could use the exterior of your building to just do that. There's nowhere else really to do that on Agoura Road. So I would hope you'll consider something more than just the bike refilling station and the bike.
That's a great suggestion. We could definitely look at it. It's a beautiful site. So
it's a beautiful site.
Excuse me. So yeah,
you could always throw in a water element there too, so that the birds will come to the water. But I might be pushing it. I'll start with just a place to go, to sit and have your binoculars and be looking. I think that that would be nice for our residents. They would like that.
I'll definitely. Excuse me.
That's all the
that's
all the questions and comments I have. Does anybody else have anything else to add? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really
for coming
appreciate it.
Today and giving us an update. We appreciate it. Good luck. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Las Virgenes Malibu Council of Governments update from Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester.
Thank you. Yes, pretty standard stuff this month. Just a couple of things. Captain C2 was so excited because she's finally got her drones, and they're going to start flying surveillance June 1st. And they're going to be flying at night because they're using, and they'll be going over the canyons. And so she said it's so difficult for the deputies to get in there, especially looking if maybe people are out there camping when they shouldn't be. And she said the reason they do it at night is because they have heat-sensitive cameras so that they will pick up, and people and maybe a cougar or two as well. But so she's thrilled about that. And also she has a new burglary team. She's got 2 deputies who'll be working undercover and on bikes, and they'll be going out into sort of the open space areas and patrolling those. So she was very pleased to announce that. And then just to remind everybody, there's the safety fair coming up on June the 8th. It's being hosted by Jackie Irwin and Lindsay Horvath. And that's going to be at the Calabasas Community Center. They'll have a home hardening, how to survive emergencies and earthquake preparedness. And then Lost Hills Open House is going to be June the 1st from 9 to 1. And finally, on a personal note, Senator Ben Allen is expecting his 2nd child any day now. What, he had it? Oh, so that's an update since Monday. What did he have?
I don't know what he had, but there was a comment online that there was a good reason he wasn't in session this week in Sacramento, and that he was helping to deliver a baby.
Girl.
A girl.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Well, that's great. Congratulations, Senator Stern. Senator Allen, I'm sorry. Senator Stern did have a couple of babies while he was acting as our senator. We'll now move on to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy advice. Oh, and I have a question for you. Just for the record, the drones will not be flying over our residential area unless there's an emergency. Is that right?
That's correct. They're primarily for safety and fire purposes, but can be used if somebody's lost as well.
Great, thank you. Let's see, so now Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Advisory Committee update. And so, we met this week, and just to give you a rough idea, I'll tell you a couple of things. The Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy has sustained the same general cuts as all other agencies, but there was no clawbacks, meaning that, we're not having to give back, take back money from grants that we've given. So that was good news. Then the other matters that were all on the agenda had to do with coastal access, and there are presently 12 coastal access along PCH, right along the coast in Malibu, and they are working towards 17 more coastal access between 2024 and 2027. Then let's see, and then they also were observing on May 22nd the International Day of Biodiversity, which is for the promotion of biodiversity, and the UN proclaimed it in May 22nd. And so I thought, just because you know how much I love doing this, I'm going to tell you about International Day of Biodiversity. In December 2022, the world came together and agreed on a global plan to transform our relationship with nature. The adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, also known as the Biodiversity Plan, sets goals and concrete measures to stop and reverse the loss of nature by 2050. This year, the theme of the International Day for Biological Diversity is Be Part of the Plan. This is a call to action to encourage governments, indigenous people, and local communities, non-governmental organizations, lawmakers, businesses, and individuals to highlight the ways in which they are supporting the implementation of the Biodiversity Plan. Everyone has a role to play and therefore can be part of the plan. And clearly Agoura Hills is part of the plan with the wildlife crossing and so many other things that we do. So it's really nice to be part of that. We are now going to move on. Are there any reports from staff? Seeing none, are there any other reports from the City Council? Seeing none, we'll now move on to the rest of the meeting. We're going into public comments. This section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items not listed on the agenda that are under the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. If you have something to distribute to the City Council, please do not approach the dais. Hand your item to our City Clerk, and she will distribute to us on your behalf. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Persons addressing the City Council shall not engage in disorderly conduct that disrupts or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. I will now defer to the City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Buckley Weber. No written public comments have been received, and no speaker cards have been submitted.
Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the council's consent calendar. This section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items on the consent calendar. I will now defer to the City Clerk.
Thank you. No written public comments have been received, and no speaker cards have been submitted.
Are there any questions from the City Council on the consent calendar? Seeing none, does anybody want to pull anything off the consent calendar? So I actually do. I want to pull item 7. So if we can pull that, and we'll come back to it. So now if I can get a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar items 1 through 6.
This is City Councilman Chris Anstead. I move to adopt the consent calendar 1 through 6.
This is Deborah Klein Lopez. I'll second.
Thank you. I'll now defer to Madam Clerk to take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Anstead?
Aye.
Councilmember Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber, you have approval, 5-0.
Thank you. So now we will come back to item number 7 that was on the consent calendar that we pulled. And I pulled that only because I voted against the sign ordinance because I think that the luminance is too bright. I'm not going to sit up here and try again to talk you all out of it. But I will want to be voting nay on it. So why don't we just, do I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 23-472?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 23-472. Deborah Klein Lopez.
And Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester seconds.
Thank you very, very much. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Anstead?
Aye.
Councilmember Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber?
No.
Mayor Buckley Weber, you have approval, 4-1.
Thank you very much. Our next item is a request for a continuation of a de novo public hearing. I'll now defer to Community Development Director Denise Thomas for the staff presentation.
Mayor, I would like to recuse myself from this item due to the fact that I received over a $250 donation from one of the owners of the applicant.
Thank you, Councilmember Anstead, and I assume you'll be excusing yourself? Oh.
Good evening. I'm Denise Thomas, Community Development Director. The de novo public hearing item that's on your agenda this evening has been, we're requesting that this item be tabled until the July 10th City Council meeting at the request of the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Thomas? Any comments? Okay, then can I get a motion and a second to continue item number 8, the de novo public hearing?
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester so moves.
We're continuing it to, did you say July 10th? Okay. Can we include that in your motion?
I will include July 10th in my motion.
Thank you.
And then Councilmember Wolf, I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber, you have approval, 4-0.
Thank you very much. Does somebody want to get Councilmember Anstead to come back in? Oh, okay. Welcome back. Our next item is to conduct a continued public hearing to consider the adoption of 3 resolutions to adopt the final initial study mitigated negative declaration for a general plan and specific plan amendment, and adopt an amended and restated mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approve a general plan amendment, and approve an amended and restated Agoura Village specific plan. This public hearing was continued from May 8th, 2024. I will now open the public hearing and defer to Community Development Director Denise Thomas for the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, honorable City Council members. My name is Denise Thomas. I'm the Community Development Director here in the City of Agoura Hills. At the May 8th, staff presented to you the work that the Citizens Advisory Group did on amending the Agoura Village specific plan. And at the end of that meeting, you tabled the item to provide the property owners within the Agoura Village specific plan area an opportunity to review the document. Since we last met, staff has met with one of the property owners in that area, and we've taken a look at the land uses that are permissible in Village Area C. And as you'll see from the first errata memo that we provided you with, we found that there was a use, farmers market in particular, that was inadvertently omitted from Village Area C. That correction has been made. Additionally, at the request of the one of the property owners of an existing center in the Agoura Village specific plan area, we took a look at the non-conforming use section, which is you will find in your packets this evening another errata memo where we provided clarification. There was a request to clarify major exterior renovation or modification, and what staff has done is we're deferring to the Agoura Hills Municipal Code definition section in the zoning ordinance to define what a major modification would be. And so we're showing you changed language that would provide clarity and direct the reader to where that new language would exist. With that, staff has no additional changes or recommendations for the document, and I have Eric Justison here with me this evening to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to public comment, does any council member have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I have a question just to make sure I understand, and it would be changing the errata language in the non-conforming uses section. That it seems to me that what's underlined as defined in the Agoura Hills Municipal Code, Article 9, Part 3 definitions, should be moved to after the word major modification instead of after major modification of the exterior. Do you see an issue with that at all, Ms. Thomas?
I do not.
Okay.
We can accept that. Thank you.
Okay. So the public hearing is open. I will now defer to the city clerk for public comments.
I'm not sure, but I believe we do have one. We did not receive any written public comments, but we do have a public speaker, Bill Tucker.
Good evening, Mr. Tucker. Welcome back.
I just want to take this time to thank you all for developing a plan to move forward, and I want to thank the staff as well for putting in a monumental amount of time and effort to put the specific plan together. I have had the time to take a look at it, and I appreciate the work that's been done. Again, not wanting to take a lot of time, I do appreciate you're looking at the major modification term because it's not defined, and I think it would help a lot if we could take a look at that so we have some clarity on that. So thank you very much for your time and for allowing me that courtesy extension for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming back. Is that it, Madam Clerk?
I think we have one more.
Okay.
And if I'm correct, Ed Corridori, did you wish to speak?
Hello, Mr. Corridori. Welcome.
It's nice to be on this side of the dais. There's a lot less work to it, but I was a member of the CAG, and we did spend a great deal of time studying the village plan and what was possible to the revisions that were possible. I think your staff did an amazing job of putting together the documentation and all of the specifications that we had to deal with. And they've basically come up with the best document, I think, that could be done when the state mandates are taken into consideration, the RENA numbers, which will be difficult, very difficult, if not impossible, for our city to actually accomplish. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen, frankly. But I do support the. I do support the item and would urge you to vote for it. So thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate that. Anybody else, Madam Clerk?
We have no further speaker cards.
Thank you. So before closing the public hearing, do any council members have any further questions of staff? Seeing none, there being no further questions, I will close the public hearing. We'll now move on to deliberations. So why don't we start with you, Councilmember Anstead?
I think overall, we've been over this numerous times, and I was also on the CAG, and so had plenty of input. We've had input from residents. We've had input from owners of properties in the area. We've gone over a lot of the specifics on the objective standards. So we've tried to make sure that we're balancing kind of the development along with still being able to see our beautiful mountains in the area. And so I'm ready to move forward. I think I'm happy with everything that's in the plan, and I look forward to seeing some of it come true. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Klein Lopez, you are also on the CAG.
Yes, I was on the CAG, and I was also on the Land Use Economic Development Committee, so I have been seeing this for a few years now. It is a long time in the making. I gave a lot of comments at the last meeting, so I won't over comment on this one, but I do want to just reiterate that I'm really, really proud of our council at the time for not only creating the idea of the citizen advisory group, but also those planning principles that helped guide our discussions. And the CAG, I'll reiterate, was a very diverse group of residents, business owners, former council members, even someone from the Cornell area. So we had different occupations, realtors, business owners. It was a wonderful composition of people who brought a lot of different ideas and volunteered a lot of their time to make this plan happen. So I want to once again thank not only the council for that idea at the time, but for our CAG members for their time and dedication to all that. We did over a year's worth of conversations about those planning principles, which were very comprehensive, from market changes and housing needs and state density laws and objective standards to protecting view sheds and, really most importantly, preserving the idea of this being a pedestrian-friendly destination that I think our former Mayor Ed Corridori had envisioned when he was originally a part of that plan of the AVSP in 2008 when it happened. So I'm very comfortable that this has been fully vetted by a diverse group of people, and especially those objective standards and state density laws, consideration of those things. And so I think it's a pretty well thought out plan and definitely ready to move forward on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wolf.
I also served on the CAG as the planning commissioner, and that was a really great experience. I want to commend Denise and the staff really for having the foresight to put in the objective standards with state laws, with housing mandates coming forward. We've lost, I guess, I hate to say it, but a lot of the local control. So through this document and through that foresight, we're able to control some of the look and feel of this. And this is where we're going to see the most growth in our city. And so we have a really defined, clear, spelled out roadmap that's going to guide us forward. So I'm proud of this, and I appreciate all the work that went in. I appreciate the business owners and the residents that have put work into this. And this is where we're going to see the most changes in the city of Agoura Hills over the next few years. So I'm ready to move forward with this and appreciate your work on this. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester.
Well, I didn't sit on the CAG, but I watched the meetings on Zoom. So that sort of qualifies. I'm just so proud of all the staff, Denise, just heading up that team. I mean, you worked so hard on this, and you looked at everything. And I think it's wonderful that you had the 15 planning principles to work from. I think that really helped guide everything. And I'd like to thank our previous mayor, Mr. Corridori, for all your input, and everybody else who volunteered lots of hours to do this. As Councilmember Wolf said, it is our new area of development. And I think, some people are going to be upset to see that open land is being developed now, but it is property that was always designated to be developed at some point. And I think you've set up the parameters for doing that as carefully as possible. And then full disclosure, I did meet with Mr. Tucker last week. I'm glad we took that 2 weeks because we want this to be a document that stands the test of time. And I think you have accomplished that. So thank you very much. I can make all the findings and move forward.
Thank you. And I feel the same way as everything that all of my council members have said. Thank you all who have sat on the CAG, especially the residents. They seemed incredibly engaged and excited to be part of this process. So, and I do remember when we chose the CAG, how we did want it to be members from, every neighborhood, businesses, and again, we still wanted somebody from the Cornell area who's not even a resident of Agoura Hills. So, and now we look at the work that they've done. We accept the work that they've done. It's excellent work. And as for Ms. Thomas, I was mayor in 2020, and I think you started in 2020, and we were like, hi, we're in a COVID emergency right now, but we need you to amend the Agoura Village specific plan and create a housing element. It's all good, right? So thank you, Denise, for all that you have done on this project. And I do know that, you are very much a leader behind these objective standards, and it means the world to all of us. So, and we do believe that it's going to be the best village that it can be. So, thank you for all that you've done, all of you, and I can make all the findings. So with that, and also in terms of the changes, I think that any time that we can define something that perhaps is a little vague or ambiguous, it's better for our developers, it's better for our city, and it just alleviates problems down the road. So I'm glad that we were able to come up with something so that we can define major modification.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I also just would like to thank Eric Justison, who helped us with the CAG as alongside Denise, because that's really special because he worked on the original Agoura Village specific plan with us, and so I think it's a full circle moment for him as well, and so I want to make sure that thanks goes out as well.
Thank you, and thank you for that, Eric. We can see that your fingerprints are all over this, and we appreciate the knowledge and the history that you brought to that.
Could I add one more thanks?
Yes.
Sorry. I'd like to thank our city manager because he sits up here with us, and I think sometimes we forget to thank him because he's the one that's behind everything.
I don't know. Should I let her thank the city manager? No, thank you. We do forget to thank him. So thank you. And yes, he's been a leader on this whole project. So thank you. With that, the staff recommendation is to adopt resolution numbers 24-2063, 24-2064, and 24-2065. I'm going to now call for a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation.
I think
With the changes in the errata, there's two changes. One about the farmer's market and one about that we will change major modification, comma, as defined in the Agoura Hills Municipal Code, comma, Article 9, comma, Part 3 dash definitions, comma, of the exterior.
This is Deborah Klein Lopez. I will make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Chris Anstead, City Councilman Chris Anstead, seconds.
Thank you very much, and I will now defer to our city clerk for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Anstead?
Aye.
Councilmember Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber?
Aye.
Mayor Buckley Weber, you have approval. 5.
Thank you very much, and thank you again to the CAG and everybody who put in all the hours on this. It was a long time coming, and I think we did a great job. So the next is a discussion action. It is an item, a discussion to consider presentation of additional build alternatives and progress updates for the Canaan Corridor project and provide feedback. Before we, I think that's Jessica Forte, right? Okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor. If you could kindly just give me 2 minutes to pull the presentation up.
Thank you. Anybody want to sing a song? Oh, I'm not volunteering. I'm trying to learn how to sing, but.
This might be a good time to sing happy birthday to our mayor, whose birthday it was yesterday.
It's, you know what? My birthday has passed, so you'll get me next year. And what I did find out, though, is that Rachel and I have the same birthday, which is really exciting. So when I saw the banner that said happy birthday, I thought, that's so nice. It was for Rachel.
Well, happy birthday, Madam Mayor, and good evening, honorable council
Well, thank
members. I'm Jessica Forte. I'm your Public Works Director and City Engineer here in Agoura Hills. Presenting this evening, we'll have Charmaine Yambao. She's our Senior Civil Engineer and the longtime project manager on the Canaan Corridor project. We also have Eric Spangler and Jerusalem Verano with Michael Baker International. They're the design team that's been working on the project, as well as Sri Chakravarthi, who represents Kimley Horn, who's our traffic engineering firm. The team will be presenting the background of the project. Oh, sorry. There we go. The background of the project, a recap of the previous alternatives that we brought to you in, I believe it was February of 2023. Key takeaways that we had from that meeting, specifically the development of a bike-friendly alternative, which we'll present in detail tonight with the bike theme that we seem to have for Mayor Buckley Weber's birthday, and then the project's next steps. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Charmaine Yambao.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Buckley Weber and esteemed council members. Again, I'm Charmaine Yambao. As Jessica said, I'm the longtime project manager for the Canaan Corridor project. Tonight we'll touch briefly on the project purpose, the current status, followed with a presentation of a new build alternative. I'd like to revisit the primary purpose and the design objectives of the Canaan Corridor project, which are to improve the safe conveyance and operations of regional and local access for multiple modes of transportation along the Canaan Corridor, and improve the consistency of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The Canaan Corridor is one of the most highly traveled roadways in all of Conejo Valley, carrying upwards of 40,000 vehicles every day. The corridor presents daily safety and operational challenges for motorists from not only the city of Agoura Hills, but from both Los Angeles and Ventura counties, and to those attending the schools from Las Virgenes School District and Oak Park School District. Recreationally, Canaan Road also serves as one of the few direct connection points to popular destinations in the Santa Monica Mountains and coastal beaches along the PCH. And the Canaan Corridor has a direct impact to the conveyance traffic to and from the US 101 freeway. Over the years, the city has administered and completed surveys, studies, and improvement projects along the corridor, all seeking to improve the flow of traffic. The task to find ways to reduce congestion along the corridor is challenging and a complicated one. The city reiterated their commitment to improving Canaan Road by undertaking the Canaan Corridor Safety, Operations, and Capacity Enhancement Project, which is included in part of Metro's long-range transportation plan and has received Measure R and M funds for the study and design of the project. And in 2017, the city contracted with Michael Baker International for the study and design of build alternatives for the Canaan Corridor. So where are we today? In 2022, staff began the approval process of the project initiation document, commonly referred to as PID, with Caltrans. And last month in April, the final project study report, project development support document, the PSR PDS, as you'll see the acronym up there, was submitted to Caltrans for approval. 3 build alternatives were included in that document, and tonight we'll revisit those build alternatives in our presentation. We've received minimal comments from Caltrans, and from our most recent discussion as early as this week, the target completion date for the PID phase is July of this year, 2024. We've also approved a co-op agreement between Caltrans and the city, which was executed in March. And this is for the next phase of the project approval and environmental document. Staff anticipates an RFP for the next phase to be released this summer with an award of contract to coincide with the completion of the PID phase. In February of last year, the 3 build alternatives were presented to City Council. The feedback we received gave us direction to prepare a build alternative that prioritized family-friendly bicycle and pedestrian improvements throughout the corridor. Over this past year, staff and Michael Baker have developed a new build alternative, and the details of this alternative will be presented here tonight. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Michael Baker International to provide a project summary and presentation of this new build alternative. And joining us here tonight, we have Mr. Eric Spangler and Mr. Jerusalem Verano.
Thanks, Charmaine, and thank you, Mayor and Council members, for the opportunity to present. So here is an overview of where we're at on the overall project schedule. A Caltrans infrastructure project has 4 distinct phases: project initiation document, PAED, PS&E, and then construction, all of which are about approximately the same length and duration, approximately 2 years each. So we're in the phase now where we're generate the PID phase, where we're right at the end. So Caltrans is in the process of signing the PSR PDS report, which is a project initiation document. This is the phase of the project where we identify the purpose and need of the project and generate ideas. We generate alternatives that meet the purpose and need. And so it basically programs the project, and we're generating build alternatives. Now in the next phase of the project, which is referred to as project approval environmental document, that is the phase of the project where the different ideas or different alternatives are scrutinized, and at the end of that phase, one is selected as the preferred alternative that will go to design and construction, pending funding. So that's where we're at, and if we can go to the next slide. The project study area the physical improvements goes from Agoura Road on the south to Thousand Oaks Boulevard in the north. The traffic study area goes down to Cornell Road, and then the northern limits is the city limits to the north. Next slide. So we included this slide in the last presentation a year ago, or approximately a year ago. And so we have regional traffic to the south on the left side of the screen. Then between Agoura Road and the southbound ramp intersection, we have multiple driveways, which are generally full access driveways, which is rights and left in and out of each driveway. So a lot of conflict points there, a lot of right-of-way constraints, so not a whole lot of opportunity. It makes widening the roadway a little more difficult. On the bottom there, we have lost signal time due to the to the low left turn volume from Roadside Drive onto southbound Canaan Road. So that has its own distinct signal phase. So when people, that's an allowed move. So when that low volume gets a green arrow, then everyone else is stopped at the intersection, which reduces the operations of that intersection. In purple, we have the heavy PM movement shown from northbound Canaan Road to the freeway. And then in red, we have the southbound Canaan Road to the freeway movements, which is heavy in the AM and PM. And then we have the closely spaced Canwood East intersection, close by. So there's a lot going on, as everyone knows. So there's, so it's a complicated project, but it's good, and we've come up with some really good build alternatives. I think in the next phase, the hardest part of the next phase may be selecting one of the alternatives above the other. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to the project engineer, Jerusalem Verana, to go over a recap of the concept alternatives and to present the new bike-focused Alternative 5.
Thank you, Eric. So now, over the next few slides, we'll take a look at the alternatives that we presented previously, and then jump into the new alternative that is that family-friendly bike alternative. With the next slide, we have a summary of the build alternatives. This is just to provide an overview of the differences between build alternatives 2, 3, and 4 that we presented previous. Starting with row 1, I'll just go through these and just provide a recap, and then we'll look at the plan view for each alternative. So starting with row 1, alternative 3 is the only option that reconfigures the existing on and off ramps. It converts roadside drive to one-way. Each build alternative includes some form of Canaan Road lane widening. Through each segment, there's different configurations, which you'll see on the plan view. All 3 build alternatives include bike facilities, at a minimum a Class 2 bike facility, with alternative 4 introducing a Class 4 bike facility north of Hillrise Drive. All build alternatives included additional lane ramps, except for the northbound on and off ramp. It was determined that it was not needed for that particular location. And all build alternatives protect the existing mature trees. So that's included with all 3. Next slide. So now let's take a look at the previous build alternatives that are included in the current PSR PDS in plan view. Just to orient everyone, to the right of the page is Thousand Oaks going north, and to the left of the page is Agoura, and we're looking at Canaan Road with 101 going top to bottom. Purple represents common build alternatives or common elements to each build alternative. Black represents unique pieces to each alternative, and green represent bike, pedestrian, facility improvements. On some of these improvements, there are red symbols that represent signal-related elements of the project. Click through, and we'll go through each of the build alternatives. Oh, can you go back, Jessica? There we go. So the slides include these boxes that kind of highlight the improvements. I'll just go through some of the high-level items for these build alternatives. So again, all build alternatives include this additional lane widening for the ramps. Go ahead and click through. It includes bridge widening for the overcrossing. This includes a new extension of the existing right turn lanes, new lanes up to the loop on-ramps, as well as new bike lane facilities as mentioned here in green. You can see how the Class 2 navigates through the interchange for this particular alternative, and you'll see that all 3 include a similar layout for that. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the alternative 3 layout at the interchange. One key element that was introduced with the alternative 3 option is the conversion of roadside drive to one-way. This is a significant improvement in that it eliminates the slip on-ramp and improves the bike safety, pedestrian safety through the corridor at that location. It requires reconfiguring the existing park and ride lot. And it also introduces a new right turn only lane to access the southbound on-ramp. And as I mentioned before, it removes completely that existing southbound lane. This also has the added benefit of eliminating a westbound or improving the westbound or the southbound intersection signal phasing by eliminating one of the turn movements. And again, similar to the other alternatives, this introduces a Class 2 bike facility through the interchange as shown here in green. Next slide. So this is alternative 4. One of the key features for alternative 4 is eliminating the left turn lanes from the minor roads, Roadside Drive and West Canwood. This helps to maximize signal timing for the Canaan phase. So that was a design feature considered. This alternative also introduces an additional through lane on Canaan to help with traffic. And it also adds an additional lane at the slip on-ramp for the northbound 101 on-ramp in relation to the West Canwood improvements. And finally, this alternative also includes the Class 2 bike facility through the interchange. So that's a quick summary of the previous alternatives that we presented. We took that presentation and listened, and some of the key takeaways from that presentation were the City Council liked the one-way roadside drive conversion. City Council supported the elements common to all of the alternatives, really liked the idea of keeping all the mature landscaping in place and not harming any of the existing trees. Some of the areas that were identified for improvement were creating that more family-friendly bike and pedestrian alternative, the need for additional traffic modeling, and the need for additional public input. So we listened to that and developed this new alternative. Some of those elements will be carried over into the next phase, but we're excited about this one. So if you go to the next slide, this is a good summary of the general improvements for alternative 5. Some of the key elements that we incorporated to make it a more family-friendly bike facility was introducing a Class 4 bikeway, as well as protected intersections where feasible. We considered pedestrian signal timing for the Thousand Oaks at Canaan intersection. We incorporated some of the elements that the City Council liked, such as the roadside one-way conversion that was more bike-friendly. And we took it a step further by introducing a new intersection on West Canwood that again eliminates some of those conflicts with slip ramps with a hook ramp. And we also considered eliminating movements from West Canwood onto Canaan, which you'll see in the next few slides. Next slide, please. To give council an idea of what we considered, here are a few examples of Class 4 bike facilities. A Class 4 is generally a buffer-separated bikeway. And we have a few options. The City Council or the city have a few options to consider. Top left corner is an example of a flexible post Class 4 bikeway where it's separated by a painted stripe and flexible posts. On the bottom picture, we have a raised median example of a Class 4 bikeway. And then on the top right corner picture, we have an elevated bikeway where the Class 4 is at the same level as the sidewalk. The raised median and sidewalk options, elevated bikeway options, require a little more design consideration in that you affect drainage and maintenance, whereas the flexible post is generally easier to implement. So there's a few considerations for this alternative. Next slide. And here are a few examples of a protected intersection. So this is how we carry the Class 4 bike lane through the existing Canaan corridor. As you all know, there are many intersections on this route. And so this is the way we protect those bikeways and continue them through. And the general elements to a protected intersection are these bulb outs that you see here at each corner. The curb is extended into the roadway with raised medians, as well as dedicated paths for the pedestrians and bicyclists. As you can see in the top right corner, the bike paths are colored in green and the pedestrian walkways are the traditional ladder white. And so this was considered throughout the corridor. Here are a few examples of the cross sections developed for alternative 5. Starting with the first one, we have an example of a buffer separated bikeway with those flexible posts. The bikeway is at street level and the pedestrian walkway is separated and elevated. And this is a characteristic of alternative 5 north of Hill Rise, as you'll see in an upcoming slide. On the bottom cross-section, we have an example of an elevated bikeway, elevated and separate. So the bikes in the north and southbound direction of Canaan are at the same level as the pedestrians and separated by a buffer, including the curb. And this is generally implemented on Canaan, on the bridge, and wherever we could, just to improve safety and the family friendliness of the alternative. So now let's take a look at alternative 5 in plan view. If we go to the next slide. So just like the other build alternatives, the project begins at Agoura Road. In blue, we have the city project improvements that are being developed and implemented there. And so the project joins the Class 2 facilities on the left side of the page and continues north through here. The project will add a third receiving lane in the northbound direction that's specific to this alternative and would reconstruct and build that northbound curb to accommodate that elevated bikeway. In the southbound direction, similar to the northbound, the project will extend the right turn lane until the roadside drive intersection. And unique to this portion, we're transitioning from the Class 4 elevated bikeway here to a Class 2. As you can see, it moves into a buffer lane on the street right there. And that's one of the challenges with this segment is transitioning that along with all the driveways along the route. And another feature to this section of the roadway is the need to convert the existing dual left turns to a single left with a median, just to fit all of this through without taking a lot of right-of-way. So to minimize right-of-way and to accommodate the Class 4, that was a needed design change. Next slide. Moving further north, we're looking at the alternative 5 layout at the 101 Canaan interchange. So as I mentioned before, one of the key features of this alternative is deleting and taking out those existing slip-on ramps. So this makes it a much safer route through the interchange for our bikes and peds to get through there without a conflict with free right-turning vehicles. And to implement this, we incorporated that roadside drive conversion to one-way, relocating the southbound slip-on ramp to roadside, and then also introducing or reintroducing a new hook ramp intersection at West Canwood Street. So that allows for the slip-on ramps to go away. And with the West Canwood improvements, that does allow us to, we were able to fit in a Class 4 to Class 2 facility on that route. And there are considerations for signal timing here, such as no right turn on red to avoid those conflicts. And as you can see, we have dedicated paths for each pedestrian. And here is a picture of what that elevated sidewalk could look like. Again, just to remind us, that's what we've implemented through this segment. Next slide. So this is the segment between West Canwood Street and East Canwood Street. Continuing that Class 4 bikeway, you can see here in green, should mention that that is the Class 4 bikeway. On this segment in the northbound direction, it was required to widen the sidewalk into the existing roadway. The road through this segment is 2 lanes, and so we maintain that, but we widen in with that new Class 4 bikeway that's elevated to not impact those existing properties such as the gas station and commercial lot right there on the bottom of the page. That required adding a right turn lane to East Canwood Street, and then and also narrowing and reconfiguring the existing median. So it does require narrowing the median, but it does not eliminate any of those mature trees. And you'll see a nice visual of that in an upcoming slide. In the southbound direction, the project, similar to the other build alternatives, will construct a retaining wall, underground the overhead lines, and continue that Class 4 bikeway. And this is an elevated bikeway, as you saw previously. This also includes a dedicated right turn lane to channelize vehicles to that new West Canwood intersection. And then continuing to the north, the Class 4 bike facility from this point on starts to transition from an elevated bikeway to an on-street bikeway with either raised median or flexible post buffer separated bikeways, as you'll see in the upcoming slides. So here's a picture that kind of shows us that as a reminder. So starting on the left of page, the bike facility you can see there is now on street and separated by a buffer. And this was done to protect and place the existing sidewalk in that northbound direction. There's an existing sound wall, retaining wall along that segment, as well as residences. And so to minimize impacts along that stretch, the project considered just a on-street Class 4 bikeway here. And then continuing north, or in the general segment between Hillrise and Thousand Oaks, the project would reconfigure to the west side to accommodate the Class 4 facilities here. This requires constructing a new sidewalk in that southbound direction, as well as to underground those overhead lines. Since we're undergrounding the overhead electric lines, we thought it best to just put the improvements on that side, since it would be less impactful. This option also requires narrowing some of the medians through this segment, but again, all the trees are protected, and it would just be reconfiguring the existing curb and mow strip that's in Canaan right now. And then finally to Thousand Oaks. This is an example of that protected intersection in detail. We took a look at this further, and there's a blow-up of that intersection on the next slide. And again, just a picture of that transition to an on-street buffer-separated bikeway. Next slide. So here is the blow-up of that protected intersection design at the Thousand Oaks Canaan corridor connection intersection. The approaches on Canaan are Class 4 bike facilities. That's a continuous Class 4 bike facility north on Canaan. It transitions to that protected intersection. And then on Thousand Oaks, the existing bike facility along that stretch is a Class 2, and so that is accommodated here, as you can see, top to bottom. And each one transitions to those raised medians and dedicated paths for pedestrians and bikes. And if you click one more time through, there's a visualization of what this intersection could look like once implemented. So that's a summary of the alternative 5, and I'll give it back to Eric to continue the presentation.
Yeah, here's a photo rendering of the alternative 3 and alternative 5 conversion of eliminating the southbound slip-on ramp. So that would be accomplished by converting roadside frontage road from a 2-way to a 1-way, and eliminating that slip-on ramp. You can visualize the improvement that it is for pedestrians and bicyclists along the corridor. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, no problem. Here's also a photo rendering of how the existing landscaping along the center medians will be preserved while still eliminating the mow strips. So as you can tell, every foot is very precious, you know, so we're right-of-way constrained, and we have plenty of different modes of transportation that we want to find that perfect balance between modes: vehicular, bike, ped. So we need that little extra width of the mow strip, which is approximately 12 inches or 16 inches on each side. So we would, take that width from the mow strip and then just use the 6-inch curb, but preserve the existing planting. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the this is the same slide that Jerusalem presented earlier, but just with the alternative 5 added in. So just to recap, this bike-friendly alternative 5. Oh, and by the way, you may be saying, well, where's alternative 1? If you remember from the last presentation, the alternative 1 is no build. So Caltrans requires that all build alternatives are compared to the no build alternative. So when we do like the traffic study and all of the environmental and engineering studies, the build alternatives are compared to a no build, which analyzes the future design year for traffic and operations, et cetera. So yeah, alternative 5 does reconfigure the interchange ramps as presented. Yes, it does widen Canaan Road, particularly for bicycle facilities, and introduces a class 4, which is a separate, buffer separated bike lane in one direction. And then the ramps are, additional lanes are added to the ramps, except for the northbound on and off ramp to improve vehicular operations and reduce queuing. And then the landscape medians will remain. So next slide. Okay, so the next steps for the project are, so we're just at the end of the first of 4 phases for the project. So next step would be to get the PID document signed by Caltrans. The city has already signed the document, and now it's being circulated through Caltrans District 7 for signature. Charmaine mentioned that the RFP for the PAED phase will be issued. Once the PAED is started, we will continue, the city and the consultant will continue to refine these 4, what I would say, 4 good, build alternatives and take it through the PAED process. So what that means is, it means further analysis and further public outreach. So probably the next meeting for the project would be some sort of public meeting at the beginning of the PAED phase. It would probably be a meeting that's dedicated just for the project, and it would be like what you would call the scoping meeting, which is the beginning of the environmental document phase, to show the community the ideas that have been generated and to get preliminary input, ideas, sort of changes, comments, any sort of input from the community. And then basically you would start environmental and engineering technical studies for the build alternatives that move forward. At any point in the beginning of the PAED phase, the city can decide that one of the build alternatives is not being well received by the community or has some sort of fatal flaw, and then you could discontinue analysis and dismiss one build alternative. Also, moving into the next phase, you can generate a new build alternative that's a hybrid of what you like from the other different alternatives. You could do that. So that's very common. So basically, the next steps for the project would be, initiate the PAED phase, have that public outreach, and then begin the environmental and engineering technical studies. And then, so the PAED phase is typically a 2 to 2.5 year process on a project of this size. And at the end of it, you would select a preferred alternative, like I mentioned. So that would be after the second, or the city, if they wanted to go above and beyond, you could have a 3rd public outreach meeting. So you would have at least 2 public meetings before the preferred alternative is selected by the city or for that process. And this presentation is almost ready, just in my opinion, for public outreach. But what should be added in should be like a traffic, what we are recommending is a traffic micro simulation, because there was a lot of words that Jerusalem used in describing, the geometrics of each alternative, and it's hard to follow. So what we do, we would have a traffic micro simulation, which is sort of like a traffic video of like each alternative in the design year. So that's 20 years after the opening, after construction ends. It's so 2048 is what we're using as the design year of the project, which is opening year would be 2028, opening design year 2048. So it's really the 2048 year and the 2048 traffic that the project is considering. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions.
Thank you. That was really well done. Questions? Anybody have any questions? Councilmember Wolf?
I thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Jessica, too, for answering all my questions, but I have a lot more questions. So, and this might have been discussed in the February 8th, 2023 meeting, but how come we're not looking at anything north of Thousand Oaks Boulevard, like the Laurel, Eagleton, or Fountainwood intersections?
So at this point, we're trying to clear the Caltrans process for over the bridge. And if we wanted to make physical improvements later when we go to construction, I think what we would recommend is that be a separate phase that didn't undergo Caltrans scrutiny when it's within our purview to make those changes.
Okay, that makes sense. And in theory, that these upgrades would help alleviate some of the traffic for those intersections.
So we are very hopeful that they will. The next phase where we go through the project approval and the environmental document and do the micro simulation, that'll all really flesh out. This effort was more just geometrical, and we'll add the new data that we have about the housing changes that have and densities and data that we have currently into those new models, and we'll be able to give you guys that information in the next phase. But we do anticipate there will be improvements in the traffic flow throughout the corridor.
Thank you. That makes sense. My next question before the comments is for the undergrounding. Who's paying for that? Is that being paid through Measure M funding, or how is it was casually thrown out there? And
I'm sorry about how casual that sounded. I'm going to ask Eric to kind of speak to what our alternatives may look like for that.
Yeah, so the undergrounding of the electrical line along the corridor is, of course, very expensive. But if it's required by a project widening or a project alternative, yeah, the project would pay for it unless it's determined that Southern California Edison does not have prior rights. So there has to be a prior rights determination on that line or those overhead poles on who would be responsible for the cost of that. I'm designing one on Studebaker Road right now through the city of Cerritos, and we have a large steel pole that's getting relocated. That's also a Metro Measure M and R funded project, but because of the prior rights determination, Southern California Edison is 100% responsible.
Oh, wow.
So we haven't looked at the prior rights determination on that facility yet. But if the project needs to pay for it, it would be a project cost. So that would be, currently the project is funded through Metro Measure M and R dollars.
Okay. That's really interesting. Thank you for that. That's fascinating. Another question, this is kind of a silly question, but I've heard that the green paint is really expensive. And is there alternatives to that, or is that the industry standard and that's what you go with for, I forgot if that's class 2, but is that the color? And I know we've done it at other places in Agoura Hills, but I was just curious.
Yeah, it's become a uniform athacolite, or I forget what the term is. Maybe she remembers what the term of that green paint is. But yeah, it can't just be only thermoplastic, because it has to have good traction across it, So it is like a thermoplastic striping. So there's two types of striping out there that exist. There's paint, which wears out in a year.
Right.
And then there's thermoplastic, which will last 20 years just with one application. So it's like thermoplastic with just a little more sand in it, I guess. But yeah, Caltrans has now created a standard specification for it, which is generally used by all local agencies in California.
Bike facilities are also required to be reflective, and so that paint, that's one of the other reasons why it increases in cost.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Here's a curveball that I know the answer is no, but is there any way in the scope, and I know we're dealing with Caltrans and Measure M, that I forgot what the non-reflective asphalt that's not as absorbent of heat, that reduces the heat island effect, could be implemented or looked at when we're doing this huge change?
So absolutely, if that's the will of the council, we'll make sure that we look at the most sustainable materials for asphalt, and we can report that back through the Public Works Subcommittee as we make, determine what those alternatives may be. So whether it's asphalt or, concrete, those sorts of things, if you'd like us to look at that, we absolutely can.
Is that something that we could add in to just consider?
Yeah, absolutely. We can consider that. So City of LA is painting some of their pavement white.
Yeah.
I just don't know that the research is not in yet on if it works as far as like from a maintenance perspective. Like if so, there's two different types of pavements. There's concrete, which is loud, so it's generally not used for local roadways because it's loud and you want to keep it quiet typically. But asphalt pavements are not as long lasting, but they're black and they're hot. Create more heat. So City of Los Angeles, like I mentioned, is trying to do like some sort of white pavement overlay or painted pavement. So we'll look into that and report back to City Council on what the data is for that and if it would trigger additional maintenance costs for the city.
Thank you. I think that'd be good.
I would also like to just briefly touch on that. If you want to change the color of the street, I want to make sure that the council is well informed about this. I do believe that we have to ask for a variance for that traffic standard, and there may be a process for that. We will absolutely go through it if that's the will of the council, but just so that you know, there's it's not my purview to paint our streets white. There would be a process for that.
Right. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And Madam Mayor, should I have fellow council members now ask questions, or should I give comments now? What do you think would be the proper?
I think we can do it, and why don't we have everybody ask questions
Okay.
first, and then we'll come back and make sure that through your questions, they might be figuring out just, it's only a discussion item that they can move forward with, unless we want to take action on something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So that concludes my questions, and I do have some comments and thoughts, but I'll save it for
Okay,
after the
thank
council.
you. Councilmember Klein-Lopez.
Thank you. I do have a bunch of questions. Sorry, not in order, just scribbling, so I apologize. The Class 4 bike lane, I remember that the numbers aren't in order. Of the 1 through 4 does not necessarily mean safest to not safest or vice versa. They kind of jump around. So it's my understanding, and thank you, Jessica, for Ms. Forte, for walking me through this. So Class 1 is the safest, but we can't have a Class 1 on this freeway, on this bridge over the freeway, because Class 1 is a completely separate. Is that right? So would Class 4 be the safest possible alternative for us?
That's absolutely right.
Okay. And is there a reason why it go along that strip that we talked about? It seems to go in and out of Class 4 and Class 2. Is that because of driveways, or I didn't quite catch why that went back and forth?
That's generally as you pass through the intersection, it'll meet back up with the street and then ramp back up onto the Class 4.
So if there's a driveway, it's Class 4, Class 2, Class 4?
Yes.
Okay.
To allow the vehicle clear
Okay.
access.
Okay. And
At certain driveways, we could implement the Class 4 elevated. If it's elevated, you could have the driveway there. But if it's a Class 4 on-street, generally there'll be a gap in the paint. And so you will allow traffic to come in and out of the driveways. And then to answer the first question, or just to add, where we're transitioning back to existing Canaan, or where there's a Class 2 facility, we transition from 4 to 2 to join the existing facility.
Okay.
Some of those locations.
Okay. And I'm assuming that the elevated is safer than the flexible posts, or is that not a correct assumption?
I would say generally it would be safer since you're elevated and you're behind a raised curb, whereas a buffer separated, it's still safer because you have a buffer separation. And if you implement a raised median along with that on-street style of Class 4 bikeway, that would also be safer than just, say, a flexible post, which could be driven through.
And wouldn't a flexible post take up less room than the elevated, or is there a way? I know every inch seems to matter on these.
Yeah, I think definitely the flexible post would take up less space than a independent landscaped median, because you kind of have to think about, does a 2 foot wide or a 3 foot wide or 4 foot wide curb to median make sense to have landscaping in it, right? So it would be sort of it could be a maintenance nuisance to have a lot of little small, I see this a lot in local agencies where there's a very small curb to median delineating a Class 4 bike lane, and it's not visible. So if you're coming around a turn or you're coming out of a driveway, you're not really looking for an additional curb like in the road. So it can be a nuisance for drivers and can easily hit. So there's it has to be done very carefully, and with, if it's just a curbed buffer with very low lying planting or no planting at all, it almost is really hard to see. So yeah, I like the flexible post, but it maybe doesn't look great. But it's visible for drivers, whereas the curbed landscaped buffer is not as visible. So yeah, it's kind of a.
And these are decisions that would be made later when we're digging into it. So.
It doesn't even, the type of delineator between the roadway travel lane and the Class 4 doesn't even need to be decided on in PAED. It can be in the beginning of PS&E where you're actually preparing construction plans and detailing it all out.
Got it. Yep. Got it. Okay, wonderful. And then can you go back to one of the slides that has the Speedway and the El Pollo Loco map? So it would be it's Canaan Road between Agoura and Road and the freeway. A little bit further, it's the map actually.
Or I apologize, these slides do have a lot of information, so they kind of go pretty slow, but we'll get there.
Okay. No, a little bit more. A little bit further south. I think one more. One more. I think that's it. Okay. So on this one, in our staff report, it showed possible driveway closures in that El Pollo Loco Speedway Center. Is that what's on this map? And if so, do we have that discretion? I mean, how does that work with the property owner?
Okay, so let's see. I think we're talking about the right of way on the south side. Okay. So the installation of the curbed median in the middle of Canaan Road would change access into all those businesses from full access to right in, right out. Now that is a non-compensable, that's within the authority of the local agency. It's a non-compensable change of access. But yeah, so when you're impacting a driveway for Speedway or El Pollo Loco, then yeah, you would, that would be definitely a compensable change. So the little strip right there in orange is a sliver right-of-way take from El Pollo Loco and from Speedway, but I don't think we're eliminating any driveways.
It says on our staff report, closed driveway. There's one, there's one, the one very, kind of the farthest to the north.
So this goes back to another traffic action that we've been working on earlier in the year with Kimley Horn and Associates to work through having one rather than two driveways into into Polo Loco. The purpose for that is that the number of driveways here, we believe, is part of the slowing of the traffic through the corridor.
Yeah.
And so, again, as we go through all of the public outreach, this is something that may be undesirable. And we can evaluate that again with the Public Works Subcommittee and with the council at large. But for this alternative to be a clear raised class 4, this is how that alternative would shake out.
Okay, and that would be in our purview to do that, it sounds like. If
Right-of-way
choose to
takes
do
are,
that.
yeah, right-of-way takes or through easement, if it's a affordable housing site, are very typical of long-range capital projects like this.
Okay, excellent. And then if you, okay, actually, we could see it on this one. This question goes for this slide with the right-hand turn from Canaan onto roadway, and it also is the same question from Canaan onto Canwood for these, to get onto these on-ramps. Is it possible to have 2 lanes turning right? Because that is our biggest backup right there, right? That's the shortest spot where there's a lot of access and lights, and this is what I get the most complaints about, is that it backs up there, and then that's what starts to back up down Canaan Road towards the beach. So would it be able to have 2 right-hand lanes so that then, I don't know if you can see it on the next slide, but then you could have 2 lanes going onto the freeway and 1 lane going straight on roadside?
I would like to study that with staff and bring it back through. I think that it's possible that that could demand further right-of-way take.
Okay.
But I don't want to make determinations that the geometrics would work without evaluating that first.
Okay, that would be a question I would have for both that and for the Canwood, because it's a little confusing when you're driving south on Canaan, and if you could have 2 lanes turn right onto Canwood and then they go onto the freeway, that, what did you call it? You call it the bulb? No, not the bulb out. The
hook ramp?
No, not the hook. Yeah, the hook. The hook intersection. I'm going to learn this terminology.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slip on ramp.
We'll absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that would be my question to look at. And then, okay, and then almost done. If you can go to the map of the Canaan and T.O. Boulevard. There's something I noticed there that I don't remember seeing before. Right there. Yep, right there. Remind me, I don't think we have 2 lanes turning left from T.O. Boulevard from the high school onto Canaan South. I think we only have 1 right now, and that would be amazing because there's a lot of backup on Agoura from Agoura High School. So there's room for all that there, that you can have 2 left-hand turn lanes from T.O. Boulevard from Agoura High School onto Canaan South?
Yes. It necessitates pulling back the median there a little bit further. It's a hardscape median, not planted, but yes. And keen eye. I don't know if you were a traffic engineer in a past life, but yes, there is geometrically
I have spent
enough.
a lot of time at that intersection. Let me just say that. So of course that popped out at me. 3 kids, Agoura High. Come on. So that popped out at me. Okay, and then my last question is, and this is the good map for that. You've got the. How do you reconcile the space that the bulb outs take at the corners with the number of lanes you need to get in there? Because it seems like we're trying to add more lanes to get the turns in, but yet we're also taking away space with those bulb outs.
I'll defer that to Eric.
Yeah, so it's turn templates, it's truck turn templates. So every intersection has a design vehicle, every move has a design vehicle of some sort of truck or emergency vehicle to turn right and have the full vehicle not hit the curb. So Caltrans has certain standards. That's why you'll see at the interchange, even with the the bulb outs and the islands at the intersection, the curb radii are a lot bigger because it requires the big Caltrans design vehicle truck, STAA truck, interstate design vehicle to make that right turn and the left turn, on and off of those ramps. Here at this intersection, which is fully outside of Caltrans right-of-way and under City of Agoura Hills jurisdiction, a smaller design vehicle can be used. But I definitely think that is going to be a refinement that we make into the next phase is we'll draw up the turn templates. Generally, the reason why they're kind of sticking out into the intersection on this diagram is because they're turning from a single lane and they have 2 receiving lanes. So they can swing out into lane number 1 on the left or lane number 2 on the right. So as a truck is turning that right corner, they can, they have 2 lane options on which lane they're turning into.
Interesting. That's legal? They're allowed to do that? They're allowed to turn into not the far
Yes.
right lane?
Yes. Yeah, they are allowed to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's really interesting. And then I do have one more question, and that is, I guess for Sri, with and we don't need to go back to the map, but when you're traveling south on Canaan and you get to Canwood West, and you're going to turn on to the freeway with the new Hook
ramp
intersection. I'm assuming, would do studies to make sure that doesn't back up more traffic down Canaan.
Councilmember Klein-Lopez, yes. I think additional traffic studies will be done to make sure that the backup will be alleviated.
Okay, great. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up, because I'm just curious on this one-way roadside. So how far will roadside be one way? To what point? Because we run out, on my diagram, it sort of runs out. So does it go all the way down to Cornell one way, or?
That's correct.
So all the way to Cornell will be one way. So people coming out of people going to Burger King or to Taco Bell, when they come out, they'll then have to go all the way down roadside to Cornell and then do a loop back to Canaan. That's correct?
In this instance, yes.
All right. And so access to Taco Bell. Now, if I'm heading south on Canaan, I can currently turn left into that driveway between the gas station and Taco Bell. Is there going to be a median there to prevent me from doing that in the future? And if so, how will people access Taco Bell?
El Pollo Loco.
El Pollo
Sorry,
Loco.
Pollo Loco. I'm sorry. Pollo Loco. Yeah.
So you're asking if you're coming north on Canaan?
If you're heading south on Canaan, I've gone over the bridge. Mm-hmm. Right now, you can turn left into Pollo Loco, but there's a driveway that you can either access the gas station or Pollo Loco. Are you saying you're going to have a median blocking across Canaan Road so that you can't turn left into that driveway?
I'm going to defer that to Charmaine.
So in the next phase, we'd have to take a look at the El Pollo Loco property.
Right.
And they do have some driveways on roadside, so that would have to be an option to take a look at with the development itself, the property.
Wait, no, but you didn't answer my question. Sorry.
Sorry.
If I'm coming south on Canaan, how do I get to Pollo Loco?
If, in this case, they would be turning left onto roadside, right?
Yeah, I'll answer. They would have to do a U-turn at the Agoura intersection if they're coming south. So, yeah, some alternatives have the full curbed median across Canaan, so it precludes left in at the Pollo Loco property. So they would have to go to Agoura Road, do a U-turn, and because there's 3 lanes on northbound Canaan, it will not be restricted, right? If there was 2 lanes, you have to do a turn template analysis. Is it physically possible for someone to do a U-turn there without having to do a 3-point turn? So yeah, when you have a 3-lane receiving, it's generally.
So it's a U-turn at Agoura Road and then back and then into that driveway. So that would be the same thing to access the gas station on the corner too, if you want. I know you can access it from Agoura Road, but you could do a U-turn there too.
Yes, that's correct.
I think that also assumes that no other frontage improvements are made by those properties. And during the outreach phase, we could have those discussions. If there's geometrically room to enter El Pollo Loco from roadside, and that works for their operations, and we have those discussions, it may be possible that you can make this left and enter into that business.
Or create a new driveway.
Yeah, and that would all really be fleshed out in the next phase when we really take a look at design, the same being true of the gas station. So there may be frontage improvements that we can do on the corner that's not currently utilized. There may not be, but we'll evaluate that in return.
Because that second driveway they have that says close the driveway, if you close that driveway, those cars that currently go in there to park will have no way of getting out. So if you can create a driveway on roadside, that would help. Then everything is going south. So that would help the traffic flow there too. Okay. All right. So, and is that going to impact the businesses along roadside in terms of not being able to turn left? They'll have to, I mean, those big trucks coming out of the lumberyard, for them to get to the freeway, are they going to have to go down to Chesborough?
So I think that, you know, with this, if we did change the circulation to be one way on roadside, there would be, you know, a really significant change to the way that is used, and there could be impacts to the business owners. We did make roadside one way during the construction of the roadside bridge, without really too much ado.
Well, hold on, you didn't make it one way all the way, because you could still get to Burger King.
You could, yes, you could still get to Burger King.
I'm just saying.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
But to the extent that it affects each of the business owners, we'll have to have those conversations with them and see how we navigate that and bring that back to see if it's worthwhile to design certain elements into the final project selection.
Okay. Yes, just as long as we're going to work with everybody and make it, you know, as smooth as possible. And then going back to Canwood West, so if we're making it, the on-ramp northbound will be off Canwood West. So there will only be traffic going west on Canwood when you turn from Canaan, correct? What happens to traffic coming east on Canwood? It can only go onto the freeway ramp, is that correct?
If you're coming east on Canwood, you can still make a right onto Canaan southbound. You could enter the freeway, or you could make a right onto Canaan. This does in again, this alternative alone, it restricts that left turn from there onto Canaan for anyone other than an emergency vehicle. The fire station would still be with their lights on. They can permissive that they could make that left.
Okay, and so will there be a traffic signal there to stop people coming east on Canwood from the west Canwood direction? So
yes, the allowed move would be yes. So the 2 signalized intersections really close to each other would probably be on the same controller. So there's not a clumsy operation there between those 2 signalized intersections. Yes, both of those intersections would be signalized.
So they'll, because there's not so much traffic coming east on that west Canwood.
Yeah, this one was little tougher just because the emergency, the fire station up
Yes.
the road. So we looked at how could we accommodate emergency vehicles. So that's why we had to keep that eastbound movement open. We'll stripe it and we'll operate it as right turn only for general traffic. And then when the emergency vehicle wants to take a left, they would have to turn on lights and sirens.
And come through. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anstead.
Lots of my questions were answered. I appreciate my peers asking the questions. Going back to the main intersection at Canaan and Roadside, you mentioned in your presentation that you were thinking that it would be better if you had the pedestrians had free reign, basically, with no right turns, or at least that's how I heard it. No right turns except by the light for the cars, the traffic that's coming from the beach to turn on Roadside. And I want to just ask you why that you did that assumption instead of the assumption of trying to have like either a hawk system or some other system that the pedestrian can push that triggers to maybe have a signal or something saying no left turn while the pedestrians go across, but normally let the right turn, the vehicles make the right turn to get on the highway.
Yeah, I think this will require further analysis. I tend to agree with you that that if a pedestrian is present, which is probably a low percentage of the time, then they would want to activate the ped push button and just have that single right, or just have that pedestrian clearance. But this is a high volume movement, so during normal operations, it may be advantageous to allow right turns on red onto the one-way roadside. That'll generally be the purpose of the traffic micro-simulation. So during the public outreach meeting, we'll at least have one monitor somewhere in the room, wherever we host the public meeting, that has a continual loop. Maybe we'll have 2 monitors so people can look at things side by side, and it'll trigger thoughts on, oh yeah, that's how that would operate if this one-way roadside isn't a crazy idea, but then if they see the improvement, they may, and you can visualize it, it may be advantageous. So it'll go to that level of detail.
Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, and my questions have been answered over time, but I just want to take a look at you're heading southbound on Canaan to making the right turn to get onto the northbound 101, and I just want to make sure, so if you make that, are you then at a signal to make a left turn to get on the northbound 101, or is it just a left turn lane?
You would be at a signal.
So there'd be a signal there.
But those 2 signals would be coordinated. So if you had just made the right off of Canaan, you would have an easy left onto the 101.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then my other question has to do with funding. Where are we in the process with funding?
So funding has been, for the PID, the project initiation phase is ending. It's been completely funded. The design of physical improvements are all included in Measure M. And the design of the next phase, the project approval phase and environmental document phase, is also fully funded by Metro Board currently. We generally, as a city, there's somewhere between $3 and $3.5 million a year identified for Agoura Hills based on our population of Measure M funds into the future with currently no daylight. So we've been outside of a few other projects accumulating money in this account. As we look at the environmental phase, we'll be considering both CEQA and NEPA, because it's possible we could seek out federal funding for this project down the road when we get to the bridge construction. But I think the COG and the council and the Metro Board have been committed in making this investment kind of pile up for this project down the road.
Okay, but this wouldn't be construction dollars.
Also construction dollars. Mhm.
All right, great. I have no further questions, so why don't we just,
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
forgot one note. The bus route, if roadside drive becomes one way, what happens to the buses?
It's the same. It would go down road. I think it currently goes down roadside and picks up, and then loops around to Agoura and Chesbrough.
So there's no westbound on bus on on roadside currently?
I would like to check, but I do believe the westbound bus turns at Cornell. Let us research that and return to you with that answer.
Thank you.
any further questions? Okay, then now we are going to move on to public comment. And so, Madam Clerk, do we have anybody to testify?
Thank you, we do. Bill Tucker?
Thank you. Welcome back.
Glad I stuck around. Appreciate your time again. I'm just interested in knowing whether or not there's been a concerted effort to reach out, or will there be a concerted effort to reach out to the property owners along Roadside Drive? Or what has been done so far?
I believe that I'm sure there will be, but I will let the experts respond to that.
Hi, Bill. The next, Mr. Tucker, I'm sorry, this is Jessica Forte speaking. In the next phase, that's when the public outreach takes place. The current phase that we're in is a geometrical analysis to see if these things would even work and to make sure that we can garner support by Caltrans, because a lot of this work is in their right of way. So we go through that phase to determine if any of these things are actually possible before we go through the effort of meeting with every property owner in case we don't want to lead anyone down a road where we can't build something, because then it's Caltrans says no. So these are just, there's a number of other phases we didn't get into, or alternatives, I apologize, that we didn't get into quite as much detail on. And the future project will be a combination of the best of those geometrical alternatives.
Sure. Well, I would request that all the owners along Roadside Drive, or any of the properties that are affected, are specifically notified so that we can make sure that we have a robust attendance at that meeting, so we make sure we're all on the same page with what's happening.
And how will we reach out? How would we contact the property owners?
So I think that the next step would be that we'll hire, hopefully, that we'll develop an RFP and hire a consultant that'll help us enter into this next phase. And then we would bring some sort of outreach strategy through the Public Works Subcommittee.
And we're looking at that not in 2024, correct? That would probably take us further down the road.
It could be in late 2024, the earliest, but again, that would sort of depend on when we get the RFP out and what kind of responses we got, and if we awarded before that time.
Okay, great.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that whatever the consultant says, I understand, but I think it's important that specifically each property owner along Roadside, if Roadside's being impacted, is told about it. So that's what I'd request.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Testifying.
Appreciate it.
Do we have any other?
Yes, we do. Ed Corridori.
Welcome back, Mr. Corridori.
I wasn't clear on whether the intersection at Hillrise and Canaan was also being considered as a protected intersection. I heard that language for the Canaan and Thousand Oaks intersection, as well as Agoura Road and Canaan. But I would point out that the Hillrise intersection has a lot of pedestrian traffic. It's the pathway from the west side of Canaan to the park, the Chumash Park, and to the high school. So there's actually a lot of foot traffic on that, and that should also be considered for being a protected intersection. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Is that Hillrise Canaan intersection a protected intersection?
Hillrise is currently a signalized intersection and has a pedestrian phase. So it's currently constructed.
And it would stay that way.
Yes.
Yeah,
With the class 4 bike facilities actually further protecting the sidewalks, the pedestrian sidewalks.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions? Any more, anybody else to testify?
No further speaker cards.
Okay, great. Then I think I will close the discussion and move to, let's see, and no council member has any further questions. How about comments? Want to start with you, Councilmember Anstead?
I like the plan, this alternative 5. I like the fact that it's using the class 4 system to separate. On the 3 different types of separate class 4s, I've actually seen quite a few different variances of the class 4s. And the reason why is that a lot of the mountain towns that are located in Colorado and Wyoming, the resort towns, they already have this implemented. And so we can definitely learn, and I hope the city looks at other places that have already implemented this. But in the downtown areas where the traffic is slow, where the speed is like 15 to 25 miles an hour, a lot of those towns have the plastic dividers to separate the bikes from the cars. So when the traffic is low speed, those are okay. But once you go above a certain speed limit, I think you provide very little protection to the bikes with the plastic cones than you do with the separate median or the raised thing. So I definitely would want to have on Canaan Road where traffic goes 45 miles an hour or faster in some cases, definitely have it raised or have the median to separate to really make our residents feel safe, and especially since there's going to be a lot of areas that may eventually be built out in that area. So I think this is great. I like some of the changes. I think it is a tough call on the one-way on roadside, and I think we got lots more to dig into on that and discuss. But I like the concept, and I think it's a good first step going forward, and I look forward to seeing the visualizations as they come out. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester?
Yes, I think this is good initial steps. I agree with my fellow council member that we've got to be very careful of our cyclists on Canaan Road, because people come off the freeway and they just keep driving like they're still on the freeway. Yes, so be careful of that. And then to really look carefully at the one-way on roadside to make sure that we're not impacting the businesses and that we're all on the same page. So I would stress that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein-Lopez?
Thank you. I really like this bike-friendly alternative, and very optimistic about this one as a jumping-off point for future discussions. So thank you for putting in the time and the effort to come up with alternative number 5. Like I said, I'm very optimistic about it. I'm obviously very happy about the class 4. And I like the example. We have plenty of examples of this from our local cities, and I really, neighbors, really appreciate that you've, kind of shown us Culver City and, some of the other successful examples of this. So thank you for that. I'm very optimistic about roadside being in one direction. We've done it before. We did it when the bridge was under construction. It didn't really, shut us down at all. And I think that our friends in Cornell and Triunfo and some of our neighbors will appreciate the fact that there's a lot more traffic coming, down or up Canaan than there is going up roadway. So I'm very interested to see the traffic studies on that, and hope that it will accomplish more movement in that really short segment, and looking forward to that. I love the idea of undergrounding lines, especially if it's not at our cost, and I love the idea of having more turn lanes from Agoura High School onto Canaan, because that's a pressure point that it just has been tough since this for the duration. So I'm very, very anxious for the next stage with public input, with property owners, cyclists, our drivers, our neighbors. So very excited for that next step, and just want to thank you for all the work.
Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. I echoing Councilmember Klein Lopez. One of the first things is I really like, and I hope that it is included, the 2 left turn lanes from Thousand Oaks Boulevard onto Canaan, because that's a heavy backup from Agoura High. I like alternative 5 with the West Canwood Freeway exit. I think that's really treacherous in the mornings. There's so much cross traffic right there, so I think that could ease it. It would help with folks who are both going north and then the people who are trying to go south. I think that could ease that. I really like that. I like the raised medians, and I think that we're seeing such an increase in e-bike technology, and it's more available, and that we would see a big increase. People avoid Canaan, the Canaan corridor, to bike it, and I think that having the raised medians would make folks feel safe. I wanted, on Mr. Tucker's point, I think it is important that we talk to the businesses for roadside if we're doing something permanent on a one-way. I think that's the stakeholder engagement. And then to former Mayor Corridori's point, that Hill Rise intersection is really trafficked with students because it's a cut-through for Agoura High. And so I think that some consideration should be taken on that intersection, and it also backs up too during in the morning, especially in the afternoon when there's students trickling across the street. So I think that's important to take into consideration. I think it's great. Thank you, Jessica, for answering all my questions yesterday, and I'm excited for this because traffic and flow on Canaan is one of the bigger issues facing the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add. I've seen the plan. I've seen Alternative 5. I like Alternative 5. First, I want to thank all of you for listening to us back in, was that February of 2023? It's hard to believe it was that long ago. But you really did listen, and you've come up with an alternative that makes biking across the 101 much safer. And up and down Canaan. And so I think that in my mind, I like Alternative 5, and so the question will be, can we make that work? And it seems like you have the funding for this next stage of the project, and I look forward to seeing I know that there's going to be some things that are going to have to be taken out, but that's part of the process. So thank you for bringing this to us, and good luck with the next step. With that, feedback has been provided to staff. No formal action is required of the City Council. Ms. Forte and team, did you guys all feel like you heard us? You heard us last time. I'm assuming you heard us this time as well.
Yes, I think your feedback was really clear, and I know we all go back and watch these videos, so we'll make sure that your input is taken into serious account as we can move through the next steps.
Great. So we're not taking any action. So we'll move on to council staff comments. Are there any comments from staff? Nobody? Okay. Any comments from the City Council? Councilmember Klein Lopez?
I have a few comments. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone. We passed an updated plan for the Agoura Village specific plan, and that's a really big deal. It's a big deal. So I just want to say that again, to thank everyone for the time and the years of input on that. I wanted to say that we've had a momentous week with the wildlife crossing, and it was fun seeing those colleagues out on the middle of the 101 freeway when we got the last girder placed, and I believe last night they got rid of the crane. So there's not going to be more freeway closures that, anticipated anyway. So that's really exciting. Also wanted to congratulate staff and council on passing the Ladyface Greenway contract, which was on our consent. That's super exciting. So didn't want to pull it, but I definitely wanted to say that's great news. And then I had two comments that we didn't have time for last time because we went so late. But I wanted to thank the council and particularly our mayor for designating that we're going to fly the pride flag. I'm not going to be able to be here for any of the festivities that may happen, but I'm incredibly proud that we're going to do that, and so I want to thank you for that. And I also wanted to thank Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester on her Planning Commission appointment. Excited to see Bruce Stein behind the dais. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wolf.
Yes, I have one comment. I want to give a big thank you to Louis. He navigated a bureaucracy, the crazy bureaucracy. I had an issue regarding a bait box at a telecommunication tower in the middle of the Morrison Ranch open space, and there was, I think I counted like 7 bait boxes with the active ingredient that I can't pronounce printed on the bait box, and there's no purpose for them to be there, and it's the second generation anticoagulant. So he worked through the process and informed me that today that they will be removing all the bait boxes from the property. So thank you for making that happen, and our wildlife appreciates it. And so that's all I have. So thank you.
Councilmember Anstead.
No, I guess the only comment that I would have is we're coming up to Memorial Day weekend, and just remember all those veterans that gave their lives for our country. And
Thank you.
so that's the comment I have.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Sylvester.
No, I think everyone's covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. And last time I forgot to ask the council if they had any comments, and I had a couple of things. It came up briefly, but I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to Kelly Fisher for the Public Works Project Manager, North Santa Monica Bay Watershed Prize recipient, which is very exciting. And I know that Kelly doesn't really like to be honored, but he deserves every kudos that we could give him for the work that he's done. I also want to congratulate Robbie Nasovic, if I'm saying that right, city's principal planner, as well as Kimberly Holland, city's rec supervisor, for being recognized for Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce 40 Under 40, which is 40 professionals under 40 years old. So congratulations to both of you. I don't even see, is Robbie still here? I don't think so. Okay, well, tell him I said congratulations, and I know I'm saying it on behalf of everybody. And then lastly, I just want to say Memorial Day, what does that do? That kicks off summer. So here we go. We're going to have camps. We're going to have concerts in the park, movies in the park, beach bus, and more. And at our June 12th meeting, Amy Jones-Brink is going to give us a full rundown for the summer of 2024. And with that...
hold on. You missed an award.
I did?
Yes, for State of the City. A really big award, an important one that our city manager got.
Yes. I will let Mr. Hamburger tell everybody about it.
Well, to our surprise, Romero and I were asked to speak at a California Public Information Officers conference about how to work your communications plan with your city manager and upper management. And as we rolled in, we noticed that there was an award being handed to Agoura Hills, the top honor for our State of the City event. And we beat out some really big cities with some really big programs. So need to say we were shocked and in awe and very proud of all of the work. That I have to give all the thanks to all of our staff, actually all of our departments put in a ton of effort into it. And so it was a unique event, and so we were recognized for that. And I believe we're going to have a presentation of the award in one of your upcoming meetings as well.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, bravo, staff. It was a lot of fun, and I got a lot of positive comments from residents about the state of the city. They clearly liked it a lot more than a luncheon with speeches. So, congratulations on that for thinking out of the box, really. So we appreciate it. And with that, I am ready to adjourn tonight's meeting to the next meeting. What did I just do with that? Which is June 12th at 6 p.m. at the council chambers. in the council chambers of the Civic Center. The Civic Center is located at 30001 Ladyface Court, Agoura Hills, California. So everybody have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.